Well, it's Sunday morning here, and we've got a coastal storm, low pressure sitting just southeast of Wilmington, North Carolina. The gradient is tightening, but the further inland you go, the less you're going to get. Just bear that in mind as we start off this Sunday morning special, because we are special, by the way, the Sunday morning special Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast in just so many ways. One way is to shop on Amazon and use our referral link that I have on the descriptor to this podcast on YouTube, or if you're watching us or listening to us on Spotify, you can find it there too. Just use the link to shop, and Amazon will throw us back a little bit of coin. It keeps these live podcasts commercial free, and I know most of you do like that. And we have also Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. And the link for this, too, is also on the descriptor to this podcast. I thought I pinned it up to the top of the chat board, but I guess I didn't. Anyhow, use the coupon code, which Joe Rayo keeps close to his heart, a deep secret. You have to get pliers to pull his tongue out in order for him to tell you what the coupon code is, but he is going to tell you.
I will. I'm going to reveal that to all of you right now who are good enough to tune in on this Sunday morning. The coupon code for Tempest is Autumn 2025. And if you use that coupon code in purchasing anything from that wonderful company of Tempest, you'll get a big 10% off. Wow.
That you will. Okay. So, first of all, good morning to everybody on the chat board on this Sunday morning. Jets just went to halftime, and they're not playing well, so you might as well hang around with us here because we play a lot better. So there you go.
Do you think the Jets can go like 0-17 this year? Could this be the year when they don't win a single game?
Oh my God! Please.
I think the only chance, maybe if they were somehow able to play the Mets, they might have a chance to win a game this year. But anyway.
All right. So why don't we just kind of, in the 40 plus years that I have done this, it has always struck me how people don't pay attention or just hear what they want to hear. And maybe we can just very clearly and very calmly point out, if you're inland, what are you going to see out of this? And if you are inland, you're not going to see much. You're not going to see much rain. It's going to be breezy. And by inland, I mean, okay, let's say if you're in New Jersey and you're in the western, if you cut the state in half by north to south, that part and points west. If you're if you're in the lower Hudson Valley, let's say you're north of 287. I think that's probably fair. If you're in Connecticut, probably north of Route 15. If you're in those areas, you should be fine. This is not a big deal for you guys. I mean, for the most part.
Yeah, I would agree. I would absolutely agree. But I think the main thing about this forecast that has driven everybody to insanity was the fact that I think that a lot of people, not us, Joe, and certainly nobody on the chat board was thinking this, but a lot of people were thinking that once they woke up this morning and looked out the window, they would be seeing trees waving in the breeze. They would be seeing moderate to heavy rain. They would say, "Here it is. Here's the big storm," and there's hardly anything going on. And this is just one example of many of the pings on Messenger I received late yesterday and last night. A person is going down from Mahopac to pick up his grandson in Yonkers. And he says, "Joe, I'm conflicted here. Please tell me, can I make it down to Yonkers to get my grandson at noontime today? If it is going to be too dangerous, I'll just call the whole thing off," or whatever like that. And I said, guess what? I said, if you go down there, it's going to be no worse than just a little bit of a breeze and maybe some light rain falling. And in fact, I said, by noontime, there's a fair chance that much of the lower Hudson Valley will be dry not doing anything. Oh, thank you, Joe. Thank you. Thank you. That's what. And another guy upset. There was apparently a big race that was expected to be done today in Manhattan, or road runners, or the 6 or 12 kilometer. I don't know what it was, but it was a big race, and the racing association called it off because, oh well, there's a big storm coming or whatever like that. And the guy this morning, so PO'd, he said, "Oh, we could have had the race, and all of this for nothing. All the preparations went down the drain. Why, I said, well, there you go. But that's the way things go sometimes when people, again, listen to forecasts and only tune in on what they want to hear
Yeah,
or what they're fearful of hearing, as opposed to listening and, you know,
and paying attention. Yeah, exactly. Now, was looking at the obs. This is right now on the Weather Service hazards map, which anybody can just go. If you go to your local Weather Service office, you click on current conditions, you'll see observation map or something along those lines. If you click on that, you can kind of create whatever kind of map you want, and the live update too, which is really nice. Where it's windy right now, well, North Beach Haven in New Jersey is gusting to 42. Barnegat, Barnegat Light is gusting also to 42, and South Seaside Park. I don't know if Alan Casper's watching today, but if he is, that's not his station, but some station nearby gusting to 32. Otherwise, it's basically 25 to 35 along much of the New Jersey coast. And on Long Island right now, we're seeing a few stronger gusts along on the South Shore, 30, and it's early. I mean, it's early in the game here. 30 at West Gilgo Beach. It's also 30 from the northeast at Montauk, gusting there along the North Shore. We're getting some gusts into the mid 20s. There's a 36-mile-an-hour wind gust being reported at Stony Brook, but that anemometer sits up off the ground by a fair distance. It's 159 feet, I believe. That could be wrong. Maybe that's the elevation of Stony Brook's at 159 feet, but I know the anemometer sits up pretty high. At LaGuardia, they're gusting to 33, sustained 26 gust to 33. At Kennedy, we're looking at 21 to 36. And again, we're at the beginning of this. The strongest winds are not going to be until later this afternoon, and particularly tonight into tomorrow morning.
right.
But yeah, Joe, I mean, it's howling in the Hudson Valley right now. I mean, utterly howling. At the Mount Kisco station, the wind is the direction is it's so windy that you don't can't even pick out the direction, and it's blowing at 1 mile per hour. Okay.
Well, let's put it more for perspective. I mean, at Danbury, which is up in northwestern Connecticut or whatever, or western Connecticut, they've got gusts up to 22 miles an hour, sustained to 15. But that's certainly not a hurricane.
No,
And
good God. No,
I've certainly seen a lot worse.
you could dry sheets with it with that
Yeah,
kind of wind. Uh,
exactly.
Bridgeport right now is right on the Sound Shore there at Sikorsky Memorial Airport is gusting to 29. New Haven is also gusting 29. But you get the idea. All the inland winds. I mean, you go up into northern New Jersey and you're looking at winds, basically under 10 miles an hour in most places. A couple of gusts here and there into the low 20s. But again, the stronger winds, and it's going to be along the coast. That's where we've been emphasizing that is where the biggest issue is going to be with respect to this. We do have high wind warnings up for the coastal counties of New Jersey. We have high wind warnings up for eastern Suffolk County, the eastern half of Suffolk County on Long Island. Everybody else is pretty much under a wind advisory, including New York City. And I'm just going to widen this out and go a little bit further to the south. Okay, that was supposed to get wider, not tighter. There we go. Now it's getting wider. If we go further south, and this is kind of closer to where the low center is, we're seeing some stronger winds. If you head down, for example, at Cape May is sustained 21, gusting to 33. We've got a 47-mile-an-hour wind gust at a buoy just offshore Delaware. On the coast, however, at Wallops Flight Facility, they're gusting to 46. The Virginia Beach, 64 nautical miles. There's a buoy east of Virginia Beach, Joe. They're gusting to 45. So, I mean, there are some stronger winds here. You get further south, you get closer to the gradient. On the Outer Banks, it's mostly 30 to 40. So, and your low center actually is very interesting. If you look at the observations, there is a buoy, Onslow Bay, outer North Carolina. That's how it's named. Okay. And it's fairly far, it's a fair distance from the beach. You certainly can't swim to it. They had a 56 mile an hour wind gust there, and the wind is southeast. And there's another buoy a very short distance away, where the wind is north northeast there. So the low center is just somewhere clustered in between those two buoys, and that's the southern low. And what we're going to eventually wait to see what happens is, if you notice, there's fronts on this, so it's not tropical. There's a point of occlusion to the east of North Carolina. That's where the cold front and the warm front meet, and the occluded front. And it's probably as that stretches out, that's probably where you're going to get your secondary low that's going to form here. And that's the one that's going to lift northward and really tighten the gradient up late today and into night. But again, the big wind, the stronger winds, 40 to maybe 50 miles an hour, it's going to be primarily along the coast.
Right, and that's where the coastal flood warnings are, because if you're near the coast, you're going to have some variation of flooding. You may have had minor flooding already at the high tide cycle earlier this morning. You'll have a larger threat at the next high tide cycle late today and early tonight, and probably the maximum effect will be tomorrow, Monday morning, and that's where you'll be seeing the greatest threat of some kind of inundation. That's a new word now that the Weather Service has just started using in their flood advisories. So if you live, and even if you live along the Sound Shore, we're talking putting an emphasis on the Jersey Shore and the South Shore of Long Island. But even if you live in Lower Westchester along the Sound Shore, places like Mamaroneck, New Rochelle, Rye, you will see possibly some flooding concerns as well. And as Joe just has been mentioning ever since we started 12 minutes ago, again, the further inland you go, the less the winds are going to be in terms of significance or being less dynamic. Yes, if you live in a place like Tom's River, Seaside Park in New Jersey, or Atlantic City, or along the South Shore of Long Island, out to Montauk, not out of the question that you will see over the next 24 to 36 hours winds gusting to 50 and even perhaps 60 miles per hour. But if you live up where I am here in Putnam Valley, which is 50 miles north of Midtown Manhattan, or a place like Port Jervis in Orange County or Poughkeepsie, yeah, the winds are going to be busy, no question about it. The winds will be gusting at times to 25 to maybe 40 miles an hour, but it won't be anywhere near what you're going to be seeing down along the coastline. And I hope, Joe, I hope that with a 25 to 40 mile per hour wind gust, that, we here in Putnam Valley, I'm going to knock on wood, because we're under NYSEG, and a few years ago, if you blew on the trees, there'd be a power outage. But
Right.
I'm hoping with all of the tree cutting that they've done over the last year or two, and just replacing the wires and the cables, I hope that 25 to 40 miles per hour is not going to be enough to cause any kind of major power outages. However, if you live in the zones I just mentioned where the winds could gust to 50 or more, yes, the power outages, I'm sure, certainly a distinct possibility.
I just want to ask you, do you know where uh, Piermont, New York is?
Piermont,
It's
I've
it
heard of it.
because I'm looking at I'm looking at uh, the title. information here. So they just mentioned that. So Piermont, New York, at the Hudson River, they're forecasting minor to moderate coastal flooding in that zone, in that area.
They are
Gonna
located right along the Hudson River, just to the south of the. Now I don't want to get in trouble here if I say Tappan Zee Bridge, so I will say Mario M. Cuomo, Governor Mario M. Cuomo Bridge. If you're on the west side of the Hudson, just to the south of the bridge, that is where Piermont is located.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to run through real quick here, just some because nobody really takes the time to do this. So I figured this might be a good time to do this. Okay, folks that live on the coast. So I'm going to just run through really quickly. And if you go to weather.gov and you just click on the menu in the on the homepage of the local weather of your local weather service office, if you look to see where it says coastal flood warning or coastal flood advisory on the map and the color, you can click that link and it'll give you some tidal points, different points, shore areas where you're going to see some tidal flooding. So, for example, um, for what we just mentioned, like I said, for the Hudson River, Piermont, New York, for the upcoming tides, not the one coming up at noon today, but the one after midnight tonight, and then after at 1 o'clock in the afternoon tomorrow, minor to moderate. Now, Little Neck Bay at Kings Point. So now we're talking about Long Island Sound. The next three high tides, moderate coastal flooding is expected, with tides running. Uh, so I'm just trying to read this. So the next three high tides, one at noon, one at 1 o'clock in the morning, and 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Moderate coastal flooding. The tide departure from normal, it's 2.7 to 3.2, and then on the overnight tides, especially the middle tide at 1 in the morning, it's up to 4.2. I'm not going to read all the numbers. I'm just going to go for moderate or major, whatever it says. Stamford Harbor in Stamford, minor coastal flooding for the next three high tides. Um, the West Pond at Glen Cove, the next two high tides, moderate coastal flooding. Flax Pond at Oldfield, moderate coastal flooding there. Now, on the south shore of Long Island, we have for Great South Bay at Lindenhurst, moderate to major coastal flooding at the high tide coming up at noon. And then the next two high tides, major coastal flooding is being forecast for those two tide times. Well, so basically, the high tides are at noon today, 1 a.m., and 1 p.m. On Long Island. Great South Bay, moderate on the noon tide, moderate to major for the next two. Um, that's the Great South Bay at Sayville, the Great South Bay at Fire Island, minor to moderate on the first one, moderate to major on the next two. Uh, Moriches Bay, the minor for the upcoming high tide, and then the next two high tides, moderate. Moderate for the next two high tides at East Rockaway. For Reynolds Channel at Point Lookout, it's major, moderate to major for the noon tide, for the 1 p.m. tide, and then the next two high tides after that, major. And for the Hudson Bay at Freeport, the next three high tides there, Joe, major. In let's see, Bergen Point, New York, near the Kilvan Cull. Do you know where that is?
Kilvan Cole, is that around Staten Island?
Okay, so that's moderate coastal flooding. So this, I know Junior's on the chat board right now, and thanks for hitting the super chat, and also for from Brandon Doherty and the chairman Scott Briller. Thank you for the tip jars hits. So minor to moderate for the first one, and then the next two high tides, which are going to be at 2 a.m. and at 2 p.m., moderate coastal flooding there. Newark Bay, minor to moderate for the current high tide coming up early this afternoon, and then moderate coastal flooding for the next two high tides. For the Battery, minor to moderate for the first one, moderate for the next two. Great Kills, minor for the first one, moderate for the first two. Floyd Bennett Field, minor for the first one, moderate for the next two. And Jamaica Bay, moderate for the first one, and then moderate to major for the next two. So you get the idea that the next three high tides are going to be really problematic uh, for Long Island, and uh, and also I'm going to take I'll pull up the coastal Jersey ones and see what's going on over there. But there's three high tides in a row here, Joe, that we're going to be dealing with east to northeast winds. So as each
Right.
high tide comes in, less water goes out.
Right. It has less of a chance over the time frame between high tides, even during low tide, for the water to drain out in advance of the next high tide, and so you have a piling up of the water, so to speak, and or an accumulation of the water, which causes problems. I think, Joe, the main public relations hit on this particular storm is that I don't think enough was there. There was not enough of a dichotomy. If forecasters had said, if you live down by the water, any water, you're going to have a problem with this storm Sunday into Monday. But if you live inland, it's going to be a bit windy, you'll get a bit of rain, but it won't be quite as bad, if really bad at all, and then your average rainstorm. The problem is that they took an umbrella and kind of encompassed the entire tri-state area, so that
Right.
people so the people who will be along the shores, the lines, places that you just mentioned, will indeed suffer some sort of a flooding issue of any, depending upon how close you are to the water and how, whether you live in a poor drainage area, you're going to have a problem over the next 24 to 48 hours. But if you live up here where I am, aside from maybe the power going out, I said I hope that doesn't happen. But aside from that, it's just going to be a more or less a regular windy or breezy rain event of no great cataclysm. But all you had to do was mention nor'easter, and then everybody felt that they were going to have some major concerns, major problems, which is why we're getting, you know, I'm getting messages saying, like, "Can I make it from Mayopac to Yonkers in my car today?" or whatever like that. No, it really is more or less a coastal issue in terms of the wind, in terms of the potential flooding, maybe even some beach erosion problems if you're right down by the water. But this is not the be all or end all storm of the season.
Oh,
We'll,
right.
we'll,
I
we
totally
probably
agree.
will have major. We probably will have before the winter is out or early next spring a couple of major storms that are going to involve everybody. But this storm primarily is going to do its damage or do its worst right down along the coastal areas.
And the fact that this low that we're seeing in North Carolina is not coming straight. It's not as if this low is moving straight up the coast and then heading up into New England. That low is going to get left behind. You're going to have a secondary low offshore that's going to pivot back to the coast for a time, but it never intensifies and plows all the way up. If that were the case, we would be having a different conversation with respect to would be going on inland. Yeah, and again, it's just a matter of everything is broad brushed, and it's sort of like in the wintertime when you're forecasting a foot of snow, and you've got your zones and you got the area where it's only going to get 2 to 4, and you get people that complain that in the 2 to 4 area that they were expecting a foot, even though the map says they were never going to get it. It's always been a frustration of mine in terms of trying when you communicate the information and you communicate it correctly, and it's basically misheard. I got to run real quick through these tides for New Jersey, because if I don't, somebody's going to say, "How come you did all the other tides but you didn't do New Jersey?"
Right.
Uh, I will say, okay, so as far as the next three high tides, in most points on the Jersey Shore, it's moderate coastal flooding. Some places and some, because there's too many for me to go through all of them. But some of them have minor coastal flooding forecast for the first high tide and then moderate for the next two. Go to the Weather Service page and click down near Philadelphia or Southern New Jersey, and then pull up your county and click on where it says coastal flood warning, and you can find out what's being forecast. But I just want to focus on Atlantic City. Atlantic City, it's called Atlantic Ocean at Atlantic City, so I guess it's right on the beach just east of the city. moderate for the next two high tides, and then the third high tide tomorrow afternoon, major. Great Egg Harbor at Ocean City, moderate for the next two, major coastal flooding for the one at 2 o'clock Monday afternoon. Cape May Harbor at Cape May, moderate for the next two, major for the one that follows. And I want to just see if there's anything further south. I just want to go into Delaware really quick to just see what's going on because they've got coastal flood warnings all the way down in through Delaware, but I can't seem to find the statement here. So just give me a moment. Here we go. I got it. And so this would be Murder Kill. That's a great name for a place. The Murder Kill River, Joe, at Bowers Beach. Major for this tide this afternoon, moderate overnight, and major for tomorrow. And Lewis, Delaware, moderate, and major for the next three high tides. And on the screen, I'm going to put up. Let me just put up. I got the wind gusts. This is from the European last night, and basically, again, you look inland. Gusts into the 30s, maybe in a few places mid to upper 30s. This is at 8 p.m. tonight. It's basically 40 miles an hour or higher along the coast and over the eastern half of Long Island. And then during the overnight, you get that 50-mile-an-hour gust that gets right on the coast. And by tomorrow morning, eastern Long Island may wind up seeing winds gusting up above 60, which is pretty interesting. And it peaks out at around 2 p.m. tomorrow and then gradually diminishes as we go through tomorrow night and into Tuesday morning. And the other thing I would just mention too, Joe, is as far as the rain is concerned, again, I'm going to let's get the NAM. I'm going to get the NAM model up here and take a look at what they gave for total precip for rain. I mean, W, what the NAM's gotten a little more bullish with rainfall amounts here, particularly along the coast. They have close to 4 inches of rain forecast for Toms River, for Long Branch, 2.5 for New York City, 3 inches for Brentwood, 1.9 for Yonkers, up to an inch at Poughkeepsie at Middletown. Rather than argue about the amounts, I think it would be fair to say that if you spread out 1 to 2, let's say this is worst case scenario for the inland areas, okay? So if you've got 1 to 2 inches of rain for those inland areas, spread out over a 12 to 18 hour time frame, you're not going to see any flash flooding out of that.
No, you're not. Again, we've seen in the summertime thunderstorms that have produced far, far more worse condition. And we've often said that in the summertime, with the warm temperatures and the fact that the atmosphere can hold a lot more moisture when it's very warm, we've seen situations where the rain amounts have exceeded the projections by double or even triple. That's where you get your major flooding concerns. This is a synoptic situation where you've got a couple of storms, one storm and a second storm forming out over the ocean, and you'll get rain. No question. I'm not saying we're not going to get rain. We're going to get rain here, and I think, Joe, the heaviest rain locally here in the lower Hudson Valley is going to come tonight during the overnight hours into the early part of tomorrow morning. That's where we're going to put down a majority of whatever we get out of this storm. But again, if you're going to be going out today, maybe this afternoon after 1 or 2 o'clock, it'll start to rain, but it's going to be light rain and drizzle up here. So it's not, again, a cataclysmic flooding situation. We've seen a lot worse in other scenarios, but again, it's going to rain. We're going to have a bit of a wind, and that's going to be it.
Okay. Thinkerbell on the chat board is specifically asking about Red Hook. I do not have anything here with respect to specifically Red Hook, but if we're talking about areas that are exposed by Jamaica Bay, which I think Red Hook is, we're looking at moderate coastal flooding for the high tide at 1 p.m. and moderate to major coastal flooding to follow. The Weather Service is basically calling for up to 2 to even 3 feet of inundation, which would be, 2 to 3 feet of water on the ground. That's what they're calling for with respect to the tides. Now, hopefully, it doesn't wind up being quite as bad, but uh, check what's on the local Weather Service page for more information. Just click on the borough of Brooklyn on the map, and then you'll see the warnings that are up. It'll say coastal flood warning, and it'll give you all the points. Junior wants to know, why do we think the models have had such a hard time with this thing? We were been talking, Joe. You and I have talked about this. We've speculated on the less data that's going in. We've also added the fact that it's mentioned yesterday about the fact that the operational model runs that you see when you go to these the weather model websites, particularly for the European, they got rid of the operational run, and instead they're using one of the ensemble members as the quote operational run. And I think that has made a difference in terms of seeing these models being so volatile. But you mentioned also too the fact that this was a weather situation where we're basically juggling three balls in the air.
Right. I love the three balls thing. So many people, so many forecasters have various methodologies or analogies they try to use. I know that David Tolerus on his site yesterday, Weather Risk, was using the one and two egg theory of trying to explain this, where, if you had one singular egg in the frying pan, it probably would have caused a lot more problems even for inland areas. But because we have the two eggs out there, the second or secondary egg or secondary low is kind of taking away something from the inland areas getting walloped with lots of rain and lots of wind. But the three ball theory that I'm using, the three ball juggling theory, is that look at what these supercomputers had to deal with in the last 2 or 3 days. A very potent shortwave, small, I might add also, small shortwave diving down through the Great Lakes and down into the Mid-Atlantic region. Another area, another low pressure trough across the southeastern states. That was the one that gave rise to the storm over Florida that slowly began moving up the coast. So you had those two systems trying to coalesce with each other. And the third ball was Hurricane Jerry, which we said at one time looked like it was going to try to block or slow the movement of those two other systems. And then we started seeing yesterday the European model, I think especially, kind of tapping into Jerry's moisture. Jerry kind of completely fizzling out or
Yep.
dissipating, and that moisture is being funneled now from Jerry into one of those low pressure systems, tropical moisture, which again loans itself to producing locally heavy amount. And so you've got the models are like fighting, in with their algorithms or whatever, like saying, what do we use? Do we join these two storms first? Do we take into account Jerry? Do we take all three of them? And this is why even with supercomputers, 2 or 3 days in advance, that you've got the scenario. I suspect that if we didn't have Jerry, or if we didn't have that potent little shortwave driving down from the Great Lakes, so we're just dealing with just like one singular system, the forecast would have been more clear cut. But you got these three systems, and each run, the model or a model would say, all right, now I'm putting more of an emphasis on the system over the Great Lakes. No, and then 12 hours later, no, I think we should put more of an emphasis on the storm now over the southeast. Or 12 hours later, well, how about the moisture we can use and funnel in from. This is why, folks, this is why sometimes, even with all of our technology, and even when we're within like 3 days of an event, that you get the confusion that we've had with this setup. And Joe, one final note, and I'm sorry I forgot his name. Last fall, a year ago, I was honored to be asked to be the host of the Ninth Weather Convention, Tri-State Convention up here in the Tri-State area. It was held at in Connecticut, and the keynote speaker was the head of the Eastern region of the National Weather Service. The guy who oversees all of the Weather Service offices in the northeastern
Neil
United States.
Jacobs.
I That might be. It might be, but but what I'm using this as the main gist of my point here is that somebody asked me while I was standing at the podium, what is the thing that frustrates me the most? And I said at that time, the thing that frustrates me the most is that in advance of a major storm event, be it in the winter or nor'easter in the spring or whatever, that forecasters on television show all of the models. Well, this is what the European is going. However, if you look at the new graph model, the graph is not showing quite as much, but the NAM is saying this. And I said, you know what? To the average viewer who's watching all of this on television, it's just total and complete confusion. I said, these are guidance models. These are to guide you into creating a forecast that takes care of everything. That you shouldn't really be showing every single model on your weather presentation. Just take that information, meld it into a main forecast, and say, here's my forecast. This is what I think is going to happen. And
Right,
as I'm saying
right.
this, the head of the Eastern region, who was sitting in the front row of the auditorium there, I'm looking at him, and he's doing this. He's shaking and agreeing.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's that's been yeah, and then that has been, and whenever I did it, whenever I showed different maps, at the end of the day, you have to make a forecast, and that's what I emphasize. That just kind of globbing all of it together. This is what I came up with. Joseph,
when the plumber comes over your house to fix a leak, he doesn't sit you down and say, "All right, I could use this wrench, and this wrench is very effective in this kind of situation that we have here. However, I usually use this monkey wrench, and this tool can usually help out. But I have another tool here, and you're sitting there saying, for God's sake, fix the damn thing.
well,
I don't get
you're
how this
saying, God's sake, fix the damn thing because you're going to charge me $300 an hour no matter which wrench you use. So I really don't care which wrench you use. Joseph Carr and Frank Scalera, thank you very much for hitting the tip jar, and we got 100 likes, Mr. Rayo.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. By the way, we're 6 minutes past our
All
half
right.
hour point, so why don't we
Let
just.
me just really quick go through just a couple of maps. First of all, this is the upper air. Joe was talking about juggling balls, so you could see the two of the balls this morning. The upper low in western New York, the closed upper low that's in the southeast in South Carolina. You can see the closed height line that goes all the way around. And as we move it along, the upper low to the north doesn't really do much of anything. Kind of slides down into western Pennsylvania. The upper low to the south opens up, and they sort of form into one nice little trough. And then the whole thing just gets swept out to the east when we move into Tuesday and Wednesday. The fact that this is happening closer to the coast, it's kind of made this, shifted everything a bit more offshore than it otherwise would have been. And the depth of these features has changed. And Joe pointing out correctly, with Jerry gone, was completely absorbed, which is something that the models did not show late last week. It had it this morning. It was supposed to be sitting somewhere to the east of Bermuda, which I think would have made a whole huge difference in terms of how this would be playing out along the coast, forcing that southern low to move further to the north. But with Jerry gone, that southern low is going to push out eastward. The redeveloping low is not going to move all the way up. It's only going to get so far north, gets maybe east of New Jersey during the overnight tomorrow morning, and then eventually gets kicked out to the northeast. And by the way, the NAM model that I showed you, by the way, was the last night's 0Z in terms of the rainfall. The new NAM today, still giving anywhere from an inch or two along the coast, or maybe a bit more in some places, and some pockets of an inch north and west. But again, for the inland areas, certainly for the inland areas, and even most of the coastal areas, rain here is not going to be a big deal. This is not going to be this shouldn't turn into a serious flash flood situation. And there's your low, just off to the Delmarva Peninsula. The NAM is not showing the secondary very well. It's kind of trying to take this primary up toward Delaware. I think that's probably incorrect. The better model to use is probably the globals, and you can see the European has that closed isobar southeast of Atlantic City and brings a sizable amount of rain overnight into tomorrow morning and brings it up pretty far inland and west before it all dampers away. The gradient's going to stay tight into tomorrow afternoon and then start to loosen. Everything begins to move away on Tuesday. We should see some gradual improvement, certainly by later Tuesday, and then a nice cool high builds down for Wednesday, Thursday, and for Friday. And I just want to also one last check of winds, coming up on 11:40, just to take a quick look here at some gusts. Seeing not really much change. Got some gusts into the 30s along the coast, maybe mid to high 30s. Winds inland, really not doing very much at all.
And I did look up the name. The gentleman who was the head of the eastern region of the National Weather Service was Jason Toole,
Oh, okay.
Tuell, and he is no longer the head of the eastern region of the National Weather Service, as he retired late winter, early spring of this year. In his statement, he said NWS employees are the unsung heroes of the federal government with significant challenges ahead, but I'm confident that the NWS will emerge stronger and better. P.S. Since his retirement, there has still been no one named as the head of the eastern region of the National Weather Service.
All right. So we'll be back, folks, tonight at our regular Sunday night time is 7:35. So I'll set up a show and put it up a little bit later on. So we'll see you tonight and I just realized I didn't send out notifications for on my weather app, which I was, talking about yesterday. If you download my free weather app, meteorologist Joe Chaffee, you'll never miss a Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast because you can watch the show from there, and you can do that right now. In fact, so anyway. We will see you later on tonight, 7:35. Have a good afternoon. Joe,
Thank
I'll
you for
see you.
the 114 likes and the hitting the tip jar. And again, we'll see you tonight at 7:35, Joe.
Bye bye.